very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. How powerful is Iran? How powerful are Iranian war machines? I'm asking these questions tonight because of concerns of an all-out war in West Asia remain as we start a new week. There has been a secret airstrike. It has set the platform for an escalation. Both Iran and Israel are silent. Is this the uncomfortable calm before the storm? Or is Iran's strategic threat game forcing Israel and its Western allies to de-escalate? We will dig deep over the next few minutes. Let's just start off with the first question. Just how powerful is Israeli defense? Reports in the Iranian media are now talking about Iran's hidden cache of deadly war machines. Reports say that on the night of April 13, Iran did not use its strongest or the most sophisticated drones and missiles. We have been telling you about weapons Iran used on the 13th of April. Let's just quickly recap here. For the overnight strike, Iran launched missiles and drones in 3 waves. In the first wave, Iran launched the Shahed 136 kamikaze drones. These fly at the speed of 185 kilometers an hour. These are noisy drones, which makes them an easy target. Iran sent these drones to distract Israeli forces, to get them caught up in trying to spot these flying weapons. In the second wave, Iran fired the long-range surface-to-surface Paveh missiles. These missiles have a range of over 1,000 kilometers. Their cruising speed is anything between 700 to 900 kilometers an hour. In the third wave, Iran fired ballistic missiles. And reports say the ballistic missiles contained micro-munition payloads, and they made it difficult for the US and Israel to intercept the incoming ballistic missiles. But with these drones and missiles, Iran was not putting its best foot forward. Iran sent Shahed 136 kamikaze drones. Tehran did not use the more advanced and the more deadly Shahed 238 drones. These drones have a speed of anything between 500 to 800 kilometers an hour. In fact, reports say these are stealth drones, and Iran chose to hide them from Israel and its Western allies. The Paveh missiles also are not Iran's best. You see, Iran has the largest and the most diverse ballistic missile arsenal in West Asia. Iran has advanced missiles, the Sajel, for example, or the Khorramshahr, even the Khyber Shakran 2, or the hypersonic Fatah series. Iran did not use any of these on the 13th of April. Why is that? To hide the potential of these weapons from Israel and the West. And where are these weapons now? Hidden in Iran's secret, deep underground facilities. And these facilities are not just difficult to detect, but also very hard to destroy. Reports in Iranian media claiming Iran's best weapons have been kept aside to be used in the eventuality of an all-out war with Israel and the US. And what are the chances such a war could break out, you ask? Well, all bets have been off since the 1st of April. Israel hit the Iranian consulate building in Damascus. Iran retaliated with an unprecedented attack. On Friday, there were reports of drones being shot down over Iran's Isfahan. And it's now Iran's turn again, it seems. Will it respond? You see, a lot happened, but it was all kept a secret. Things are only coming to the fore now. On Friday, Iran said 3 drones were shot down in Isfahan. Israel never said a word linking itself to the attack, and Iran never said much about the scale of the damage. We were told that the nuclear site in Isfahan was safe, and that's about it. Now, American officials are saying that on Friday, there was a strike on Iran. At least one Israeli missile hit Iran. This, I repeat, happened on Friday. An Israeli missile hit Iran. This missile was reportedly launched from a warplane. This warplane was reportedly far from Israeli or Iranian airspace, and the plane and the missile did not enter the Jordanian airspace. Now, these are all reports in the Western media. Iran, on its part, has chosen to play down Friday's attack. But Western media reports that Israel managed to strike a Russian-origin S-300 missile system. The missile system was stationed at the Isfahan International Airport. The BBC reports that the radar of the S-300 defense system has been damaged. FYI, the radar's job is to guide the surface-to-air missiles. And the extent of the damage is not known. We are being told that the missile launchers of the S-300 system are intact. Russia delivered this S-300 defense system to Iran in the year 2016. Israel reportedly used a high-tech missile and it was able to evade Iran's radar system. Iran, again, is not confirming any of this. Iranian media is focusing on the country's secret weapon. The Tasneem news agency that is reporting about the hidden cache about Iran's secret missiles is associated with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or the IRGC. And through it, Iran is clearly trying to send a message that it is capable of much more. Now, you may ask, is the world taking Iran seriously? You see, Iran is brilliant in playing the strategic threat game, and world powers know this. The Wall Street Journal reports that the scale of Iran's attack on April 13 left the Biden administration shocked. U.S. President Joe Biden and his national security team quickly assembled in the White House Situation Room. They watched Iran's weapons cruising towards Israel. The report says the U.S. officials were scared that Israel's Western allies may not be able to stop the assault. You know why? Because never before had they been faced with the task to intercept 300 plus incoming drones, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles. U.S. officials were confident that they could help counter around 50 ballistic missiles, but what they were met with were 170 drones, 30 cruise missiles, 120 ballistic missiles. The White House did not know if Israel's missile defenses and the coalition could do the job. U.S. officials were left scrambling, drawing up defense plans. One of the plans involved Saudi Arabian warplanes and Jordanian warplanes defending their airspaces. Now, Iran is talking about a secret stockpile, about deadlier weapons. Israel and the White House are taking notes. They know that an escalation will not look anything like April 13. It will be more dangerous. And which is why Israel has chosen not to risk an all-out war. Friday's strike was limited, you see. Despite his political greed, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has chosen to stop escalation with Iran, despite not stopping escalation against Palestine. Let's now shift focus to the other big story we have for you tonight. It's about the dark world of nuclear weapon sales. It's about the nuclear nexus between China and Pakistan. You see, China has been secretly arming Pakistan with nuclear missiles parts. This is not new. But the U.S. response is... Last week, the U.S. slapped sanctions on 4 international firms for aiding Pakistan's ballistic missile program. These are companies from China and Belarus. Washington's move aims to curb an unstable Pakistan's ballistic missile program, including its long-range missile program. On Friday, the U.S. State Department said, and I'm quoting, these entities have supplied missile-applicable items to Pakistan's ballistic missile program, including its long-range missile program. In fact, Washington said that these sanctions are part of America's efforts to disrupt and target the proliferators of weapons of mass destruction, as well as their means of delivery. You see, both the US and China are part of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation, and Disarmament Regime. It is an international treaty that basically aims to limit the spread of nuclear weapons and the technology related to them. The goal is to promote peaceful use of nuclear energy. A total of 191 states are part of the treaty, including the 5 nuclear weapon states. They are the US, the UK, France, Russia, and China. Pakistan is not part of this treaty, and therefore, US sanctions on firms supplying missile parts to Pakistan are legitimate. The 3 Chinese companies that faced US sanctions include Xi'an Longday Technology Development, Tianjin Creative Source International Trade, and 3 Grandpect Company Limited. The Belarusian company facing the sanctions has been identified as Minsk Wheel Tractor Plant. Now, these entities have reportedly engaged in activities or transactions that have contributed to or pose a risk of contributing to the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. Now, just to put it simply, these companies were aiding a state that is not part of the treaty in building a nuclear weapon. And what did they supply to Pakistan? According to reports, the Chinese companies provided missile-related equipment like filament winding machine, stir-wielding equipment, linear accelerator system, all components needed for the production of ballistic missiles. Meanwhile, the Belarusian company was reportedly supplying special vehicle chassis to Pakistan's long-range ballistic missile program. Such chassis are used as launch support equipment for the missiles by Pakistan's National Development Complex. Now, Pakistan is crying foul. On Saturday, Islamabad criticized America for penalizing the 4 international companies on charges that they are aiding its ballistic missile program. Pakistan Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mumtaz Zehra Baloch said, and I'm quoting now, Pakistan rejects political use of export controls. Such listings of commercial entities have taken place in the past as well on allegations of links to Pakistan's ballistic missile program, without sharing any evidence whatsoever. The Pakistani minister criticized what she called the arbitrary application of export controls and demanded an end to erroneous sanctions on technology. She claimed that the technology was needed purely for socio-economic development pursuits. However, it's unclear what developmental pursuits Pakistan is referring to. It is a country facing extreme poverty, a shortage of food and medicines, economic turmoil. Despite this, Pakistan continues to focus on its nuclear modernization. But Pakistan is a history cheater. It has a thriving nuclear black market, and its continued efforts to secretly and illegally build its nuclear program is common knowledge at this point. In fact, its nuclear weapons program was built from stolen nuclear technology. You must have heard about Abdul Qadir Khan, or the father of Pakistan's atomic weapons program. Khan has been accused of stealing centrifuge uranium enrichment technology from a Netherlands facility where he had worked. He would later use this stolen technology to develop Pakistan's first nuclear weapon. In the year 1974, after India conducted its first peaceful nuclear test, Khan offered to launch Pakistan's nuclear weapons program. He reached out to then Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, offering technology for Pakistan's own nuclear weapons program. Still smarting from the 1971 loss of East Pakistan, now Bangladesh, as well as the capture of 90,000 Pakistani soldiers by India, the then Pakistan Prime Minister embraced Khan's offer. He had famously said, "We will eat grass, even go hungry, but we will have our own nuclear bomb." In the year 1976, Khan began work with the Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission and founded the engineering research laboratories to build and operate a centrifuge plant using components that he had purchased from Europe and elsewhere. And Khan would later use his contacts to forge a vast black market network that sold or traded nuclear technology, centrifuges and other items to countries like North Korea, Iran, Libya, and possibly others. There is little doubt that Khan carried out these transactions without the knowledge of Pakistan's leaders and military. By 1978, Pakistan had produced enriched uranium, and 4 years later, it had weapon-grade uranium. By the mid-1980s, thousands of centrifuges were turning out enough uranium for making several atomic bombs per year. By 1988, Pakistan had the capability to assemble a nuclear device. It is reported that Khan likely had acquired the warhead design from China, apparently obtaining blueprints of an implosion device that was detonated in a 1966 test, which used uranium rather than plutonium. In response to Indian nuclear tests in 1998, Pakistan claimed it had successfully detonated 5 nuclear devices. A 6th device was tested 2 days later at a site 100 kilometers to the southwest. Now, there was no doubt Pakistan had joined the nuclear club, and that with various ballistic and cruise missile programs underway, it was in an arms race with India. In 1990, months after the 1989 withdrawal of Soviet troops from Afghanistan, the US had slapped Pakistan with crippling sanctions, ending all aid to the country. Pakistan has also been accused of selling nuclear weapons technology to North Korea in exchange for its no-dong missiles capable of carrying nuclear warheads. A 2003 US Congressional Research Report, in fact, said that while it was difficult to pinpoint the starting of Pakistan's nuclear cooperation with North Korea, it likely began in mid-1990s. That nuclear black market exists still today, thriving outside the non-proliferation regime. Why hasn't it changed? It's because Pakistan has not yet developed indigenous technology. It's all stolen technology or knowledge. It cannot exactly go shopping for nukes, mostly thanks to the non-proliferation treaty. Hence, it has to resort to secret, dark deals. And in this day and age, it is much easier than before for intel agencies to keep a close eye on the transfer of nuclear technology. And that is how the Americans uncovered the China-Belarus-Pakistan nexus. Let's now take a quick look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. In Gaza, a baby is born from the womb of her dead mother. We get to the complete story in just a bit. The United States is planning to sanction a military unit of the Israeli Defense Forces called Netza Yehuda. On Gravitas tonight, we tell you all about this unit of mostly ultra-Orthodox Jews that's been accused of human rights violations. Also coming up on the show, China is close to building a silent, super-fast submarine, and the US is planning to build floating fortresses. We tell you how navies are preparing for a naval war in the Indo-Pacific. And we also have a very special report on the Neil Armstrong of the Arab world. On Snapshot tonight, we tell you the story of Mohammad Faris, Syria's only astronaut who has died at the age of 72. The first day of the week is as good a day as any to remind ourselves that it is never too late to lose hope, that miracles happen when and where least expected. In Gaza, a child was born from the womb of her dead mother. Sabrine al-Sakani was 30 weeks pregnant when her home was hit in an Israeli airstrike. Sabrine was seriously injured. Her husband, Shokri, was killed, as was their 3-year-old daughter, Malak. When doctors found the family in a critical condition, her brain was exposed, but there was a heart beating in her womb. It was her unborn child. The doctors knew they could save only one of the two, the mother or her baby, and they chose to save the baby as she had a higher chance of survival. Doctors performed an emergency C-section. The warrior baby was delivered. It was a baby girl. She weighed 1.4 kgs. Her condition was borderline critical. She had a moderate to severe respiratory distress. She is now in a hospital where she will be spending the next 3 to 4 weeks. The doctors have named her the baby of a martyr. It is written in Arabic on the baby's stomach, baby of martyr Sabrine al-Sakani. The doctors say the baby's challenges have only begun. She was born an orphan. Doctors still have not figured out where the baby will go once she recovers. For now, they are focusing on ensuring the baby is healthy. Doctors say for the child to grow up healthy, she would need to be nursed by her mother. But this baby does not have a mother. She has been killed in the war. The baby's uncle survived the airstrike. He says the baby's family was very excited, especially the young girl, Malak. She was happy about becoming an elder sister. She wanted to name the baby Ruh. But now Ruh will never be able to meet her elder sister Malak. The siblings will never be able to play. Ruh will also never get to know her father. He was a humble man. He was a barber. He ran a shop along with his brother. Ruh's grandmother says she will take care of the baby as she is a memory of her father. The grieving grandmother says only parts of her son's body were found. The little girl is all they have now. Ruh's mother, wherever she is, must be relieved that Ruh will be taken care of in her absence. She never got to hold Ruh, but Gaza's doctors and nurses pooled every resource they had to ensure that the baby girl survives. This is the reality of war. It separates a mother from her unborn daughter, an elderly mother from her son. Why are wars even fought? Except to cater to the egos of powerful men. Meanwhile, an army unit of the Israel Defense Forces is expected to face U.S. sanctions. It is a battalion called Netzah Yehuda. Reports say the United States will impose the sanctions on the unit over its treatment of Palestinians in the West Bank. Now, what is the story here? Who are the Netzah Yehuda? Let's get to the details. The story begins in the year 1999. That's when the Netzah Yehuda battalion was set up. The aim essentially was to accommodate the religious beliefs of ultra-Orthodox Jews and other religious nationalist recruits in the army. Basically, for them to serve in the army by letting them maintain their religious practices. For example, giving them time for prayers and study. The battalion primarily operated in the West Bank before it was moved out of there in late 2022. This was following U.S. criticism. Recently, the Netzah Yehuda unit has been serving in Gaza. And what exactly is the battalion accused of? Why is the U.S. considering imposing sanctions? There have been a string of incidents in recent years in which Netzah Yehuda soldiers were accused of or charged with abusing Palestinian detainees. In fact, the U.S. called for a criminal investigation after Netzah Yehuda soldiers were accused of being involved in the death of a 78-year-old Palestinian American. His name was Omar Assad. He died in the year 2022. A Palestinian autopsy found Assad died from a stress-induced heart attack as a result of being manhandled. According to the Israeli military, soldiers temporarily gagged Assad with a strip of cloths and cuffed his hands with a zip tie. Why? Because of his refusal to cooperate. Netzah Yehuda's battalion commander was reprimanded. 2 officers were dismissed, but Israeli military prosecutors decided against pursuing criminal charges because they said there was no link between what the soldiers did and the death of Omar Assad. Basically, the military advocate general said a military medical official found it impossible to determine that his death was caused specifically by the soldier's conduct and that the soldiers could not have known about his medical condition. What about the sanctions now? What is the U.S. saying? According to the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, he has made determinations regarding accusations that Israel violated a set of U.S. laws that prohibit providing military assistance to individuals or security force units that commit gross violations of human rights. Let me repeat that last bit for you. Individuals or security force units that commit gross violations of human rights. So what is the timeline looking like? Blinken said an announcement could be made very soon. So how exactly is Israel looking at all of this? Simply put, with a lot of anger. Israeli leaders have reacted angrily to reports of the sanctions. The Israeli military has said that the Netzah Yehuda battalion is an active combat unit that operates according to the principles of international law. What about Benjamin Netanyahu? What is he saying? He said his government would act by all means against any move. Let me tell you more about his reaction and the words that he used to describe all of this. He called the possibility of sanctions on the unit the peak of absurdity and a moral low at a time when Israeli forces are fighting a war in Gaza against Hamas. Reports say Benny Gantz, in fact, spoke to Blinken and requested that he reconsider the prospective decision. Let me also tell you about what's happening on the ground. More Palestinians are dying with each passing day. In fact, the Palestinian death toll from the ongoing Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip has gone up to 34,151. In fact, the Israeli army killed 54 Palestinians and injured 104 others in the past 24 hours, just in the last 24 hours. But what for? What exactly is Israel even gaining? What I can tell you is that accountability seems to be catching up with Israel now. Israel's top military intelligence official announced his resignation on Monday over his role in the failures that led to the Hamas group's October 7 attack on Israel. Major General Aharon Halayva, the chief of Israel Defense Forces Military Intelligence Directorate, will step down from the military once a replacement is appointed. But is this too little, too late? Mohammad Faris, the Neil Armstrong of the Arab world, has passed away. He was the first and the only cosmonaut from Syria. He breathed his last in Turkey, where he was living as a refugee for the last 12 years. How did this national hero end up living in exile? How did he go from cruising among the stars to fighting for his fellow refugees? Our next report tells you the story of Mohammad Faris. Take a look.
The Neil Armstrong of the Arab world has departed to be among the stars. His name was Mohammad Faris. He was the first cosmonaut from Syria and the second from an Arab state. But Faris wore many hats. Through the course of his life, he saw the roles of fighter pilot, spaceman, military advisor to the Assad regime, then a protester and a refugee. He breathed his last in Turkey at 72 following a long illness. He'd been living there as a refugee for the last 12 years. How did he end up there? Let's start from the top. Muhammad Ahmad Faris was born in 1951 in Aleppo. In 1973, he graduated from the military pilot school. Soon he became a pilot in the Syrian Air Force, specializing in navigation. But it was in 1985 when Faris rose to fame. He was selected to join the Soviet Union's Intercosmos program. After 2 years of training, he made his journey to space on a Soyuz 3 with 3 Russian cosmonauts. Faris was in space for 7 days, 23 hours and 5 minutes, and according to him, it changed his life. He carried out scientific experiments and photographed Syria from space. He left Earth as a man of humble origins, but he returned as a national hero. He had reached the stars after all. Faris was named a hero of the Soviet Union. He was awarded the Order of Lenin for his role in the Intercosmos program. A school, an airport, and roads were named after him. During his time in space, he decided to quit the military. He made it his mission to educate people in science and astronomy. What prompted him to take this decision? Faris was quoted as saying, "When you've seen the whole world through your window, there is no us and them, no politics." He wanted to pass on the privileged view he had been given. After his return, Faris asked President Hafiz al-Assad to fund a national space science institute to help other Syrians reach space. But the answer was an emphatic no. Instead, Faris was installed at the Air Force College, teaching hundreds of young men to fly fighter jets. He was the top gun, but according to Faris, those were empty powers. When Hafiz died in 2000, his son Bashar al-Assad took over. Soon, Faris, being the head of Syria's Air Force Academy, became his military advisor. But he still hoped to head quietly into academia. More importantly, he despised the ways of the Assad regime. So he participated in the Syrian revolution that started in 2011. Initially, the protests were peaceful. Both Faris and his wife joined in. He was threatened by the supporters of the Assad regime, but that did not stop him from speaking up. When the violence began, Faris began planning his escape. With 3 children and a wife to think about, he left nothing to chance. Eventually, they packed what they could in a car without arousing suspicion and drove over the Turkish border in 2012. He set up an office in Istanbul and publicly opposed the Syrian regime. Since then, Faris campaigned for democratic change in Syria, through words, not weapons. Now, he has left this world, but will always be remembered as a hero.
On to America now. It is facing growing threats in West Asia. On Sunday, at least 5 rockets were launched from Iraq's town of Zomar. The attack was the first since early February, in fact, to target U.S. troops when Iranian-backed groups in Iraq brought to an end a campaign that had seen regular strikes. The U.S., in fact, resumed hostilities. The resumed hostilities came a day after Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammad al-Sudani returned from a visit to the U.S., where he met with the President, Joe Biden. A post on a Telegram group affiliated with Kataib Hezbollah said that armed factions in Iraq had decided to resume attacks after having seen little progress on talks to end the US-led military coalition in the country. However, on Monday, Kataib Hezbollah said it had issued no statement claiming a return to attacks on US forces. It called the earlier announcement as fabricated news. Meanwhile, a statement from Iraqi security forces accused outlaw elements of having targeted a base of the international coalition with rockets in the heart of Syrian territory. Iraqi forces launched a major search operation in the northern Nineveh province and found the vehicle used in the attack. A U.S. official, speaking on the condition of anonymity, told news agency Reuters that more than 5 rockets were fired from Iraq towards troops at a coalition base in Syria, and no U.S. personnel were injured in the attack. The same official called it a failed rocket attack. It was not immediately clear if the rockets had failed to hit the American base or been destroyed before they reached. It was also not clear if the base was the target itself. Following the attack, an aircraft from the US-led coalition in Iraq and Syria carried out a strike against the launch site. 2 security forces and a senior army officer in Iraq said that a small truck with a rocket launcher fixed on the back had been parked in Zomar, a town on the border with Syria. The truck was destroyed and seized for further investigation. The Iraqi Security Media Cell, which is an official body responsible for disseminating security information, had said that its forces had launched a wide-ranging search and inspection operation targeting the perpetrators near the Syrian border and vowed to bring them to justice. The attacks came after a huge blast at a military base in Iraq on Saturday killed a member of an Iraqi security force that includes Iran-backed groups. The force commander said it was an attack, while the army said it was investigating. There were no warplanes in the sky at the time. Preparations are on in full swing for an all-out war in the Indo-Pacific. With its bases in West Asia threatened, America is busy building floating fortresses in another part of the world. The US Navy has come up with a unique plan to counter China. It involves converting oil rigs, international military bases, into military bases. These will be crucial in America's response to escalating missile threats in the region, especially from China. Now, here's what we know. The project involves transforming surplus oil rigs into mobile missile defense and resupply bases. It is being developed by Gibbs and Cox. The idea was unveiled at the Sea Air Space 2024 Expo in Washington, D.C. The mobile defense or depot platform concept is designed to convert oil platforms into large floating island bases. They can operate independently for over 12 months, positioned at an ideal distance from the shore. The converted platforms will potentially play a dual role. On one hand, it will enhance U.S. air defense capabilities, and on the other hand, it will aid in strike missions. These floating fortresses will have the capacity to hold up to 512 vertical launch system cells or 100 large missile launchers. This capability is about 5 times that of an existing Arleigh-class destroyer. These floating bases will have great strategic importance. It could lead to a substantial reduction in risks and costs associated with land-based defense systems. There is also a plan to use these mobile platforms to support the sustainment of the U.S. Navy's surface combatants as well as nuclear submarines. How exactly? Through an afloat-forward staging base configuration, meaning a sea base dedicated to special warfare missions. This offers the U.S. military a cost-effective solution at only 10% of the price of a new-built ballistic missile defense system. It's an ambitious project. It shows basically that the U.S. military is bridging the gap between sea and land-based capabilities in order to take on a belligerent China. Early this month, the U.S. military placed a mid-range capability missile system on northern Luzon in the Philippines as part of the joint military exercises called Salaknib 24. It is the first time since the Cold War that the U.S. deployed such a system in Asia. It's the newest Typhoon launcher, a land-based system that can fire various missiles, including the SM-6 supersonic missile with a range of about 450 kilometers. It can also fire the Tomahawk cruise missile, which has a maximum range of 2,500 kilometers. You know what this means? It means that this American missile system can cover not only the entire Taiwan Strait and the Philippines' Luzon Strait, but also the most important cities on China's eastern coast, as well as its military bases in and around South China Sea. China, of course, decried America's move in the region. Its foreign ministry spokesman Lin Jian said at a regular press briefing last week that China strongly opposes the U.S. move. Both U.S. and China are militarizing the high seas in a great power competition to dominate. China, which considers self-ruled Taiwan as its own territory, has rapidly grown to become the world's largest navy in the past decade. China has modernized and continues to modernize its navy, raising concerns that it could invade Taiwan soon. Remember, China claims most of the South China Sea, putting it in conflict with Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Taiwan, and Vietnam. And with the U.S. also boosting its military ties in Asia, the stage, it seems, is set for a military confrontation in the South China Sea and the Indo-Pacific. And China also is preparing for a naval war in the South China Sea, it seems. Chinese scientists are close to developing super-fast, silent nuclear submarines. These are working on sci-fi technology. It is called the underwater fiber laser-induced plasma detonation wave propulsion. Basically, what Chinese scientists are developing are laser propellers. These propellers produce 70,000 newtons of thrust. That's the kind of force of a commercial jet engine. This technology, Chinese scientists hope, will make the Chinese Navy invincible at sea. How exactly? First, the technology will allow Chinese submarines to travel faster than the speed of sound. What is the speed of sound? 1,060 kilometers an hour. That's really fast for a submarine. There was a time when the Soviet-era K-222 submarine would be called the world's fastest. And what was its speed? 44.7 knots. That's a little over 83 kilometers an hour. Now, Russia's Akula-class submarine reportedly can attain the speed of 35 knots. That's around 64 kilometers an hour. China's Shank-class submarines are also considered among the world's fastest. Its speed is around 30 knots, a little above 55 kilometers an hour. 55 to 1,060 is quite a leap. But is it even realistic? Chinese scientists are positive. Also, like every other Chinese technology, this one also is not an original. The idea of underwater laser propulsion was proposed by Japanese scientists. This was about 20 years ago. And now Chinese scientists say they are close to making it a reality. And reports say the technology pulses numerous high-powered laser beams around the submarine. The submarine then becomes invincible. It goes undetected by radar systems, as it does not produce the vibrations that radars detect. It sounds too good to be true. Perhaps that is the case. The team of scientists working on this technology also admitting that there are still challenges, which means it may be a while before Chinese silent submarines become a reality, if at all they do. On that note, we're taking a very short break. Stay with us. You're watching Gravitas.
Everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I actually pushed myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted the world over.
At WION, sport is part of our DNA. Come, join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
A mother's love knows no end. She can cross every barrier, every border to save her child. I'm not just saying that, it has actually happened. You might know about Nimisha Priya, the nurse from Kerala who is facing a death sentence in Yemen. Despite all the hurdles, Nimisha's mother, Prema Kumari, has flown to Yemen to save her daughter. She arrived at Yemen's international airport on Saturday. Nimisha's husband, Tommy Thomas, daughter Michelle, Advocate K.R. Subhash Chandra, and the chairman of the Save Nimisha Action Council also accompanied her. After visiting Nimisha Priya in prison, they plan to meet the tribal leaders and the family of the Yemeni citizen who was killed. This journey is Nimisha's last hope in her exhausting legal battle. The Yemeni Supreme Court has already, remember, rejected her appeal. Can her mother save her from execution? For Prema Kumari, reaching Yemen in the first place has been an uphill battle, to say the least. Last year, she moved the High Court in India to seek permission to go to Yemen. It's not so easy because of the travel bans that were put in place. India currently lacks diplomatic relations with the Yemeni government. Nimisha's mother had been willing to go there, even though it meant she would be risking her life. She wanted to negotiate a blood money deal to save her daughter. Now, for those who might not be aware, blood money is compensation decided by the victim's family in exchange for the convict's release. But to take this negotiation forward, Prema Kumari had to travel to Yemen, which was impossible until the Delhi High Court granted permission to her. Seeing the urgency of the matter, an exception was made for Nimisha's mother to fly to Yemen. However, the court had asked Prema Kumari to submit an affidavit stating that she will travel at her own risk without any liability to the Indian government. And Nimisha's mother did exactly that. She is gambling away her life in a way to save her daughters. Will she be able to win? Will she be able to save her daughter? We can only hope that she does. She had no clue this would happen when her daughter left her hometown in 2008 with big dreams. Nimisha was good at studies. The local church supported her school education and paid for her nursing diploma course. And soon Nimisha secured a job as a nurse in the government-run hospital in Yemen's capital. She told her mother, who is a poorly paid domestic helper, that their days of hardship would soon be over. The job in Yemen was meant to be their ticket out of crippling poverty, but that dream turned into a nightmare. Nimisha was put on death row for murdering a local man, Talal Abdo Madhi. Since 2018, she has been counting her days in Sana'a Central Jail. Her family has been advocating for her release. As Yemen follows Sharia law, Nimisha has one last option of escaping death. That is to secure a pardon from the victim's family by paying blood money. Her family and campaigners are racing against time, hoping to pull off a miracle. Prema Kumari breaks down every time she describes her daughter's ordeal. She says she will seek the family's forgiveness. She also says she is willing to trade her life to save her daughter. How will this story unfold? Will the mother's love emerge victorious? Will Prema Kumari bring Nimisha back home? On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S. And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
Togo's constitutional changes trigger popular protests after lawmakers approve reforms that may extend the 19-year rule of President Faure Gnassingbe. South Africa marks 30 years since its first post-apartheid election as the nation marks Freedom Day on April 27th, with polls to be held 2 days after defeat. And meet Pelumi Nubi, a Nigerian woman who completed a road trip from London to Lagos to promote a safe and borderless Africa. Watch World of Africa at these times, only on WION. World is one.
Economic turmoil and global unrest have cast a shadow over President Joe Biden's approval ratings.
The rockets are continuing to be fired by Hamas in Gaza, although at a slower rate than previously.
So, right now, we are with the volunteers from the Aleppo municipality. They are still trying to go to the rescue for the people they can find out.
India has emerged as a major diplomatic force at the world stage.
The rising cost of living in Nigeria continues to impact citizens from all walks of life.
The citizens of Gujarat witnessed a mega roadshow here in the city of Ahmedabad.
China is South Africa's largest trading partner for 134 years straight.
A domestic aircraft carrying 72 people on board crashed in Pokhara city in central Nepal.
165 injuries have been moved, 61 people are confirmed dead, and rescue operations continue around me.
After receiving an entire season's rainfall in a span of 48 hours, Chennai city has literally been brought to its knees.
South Africa, for WION, World is one.
Everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I should push myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted